Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Good.
This
Thanks,
is the part of the podcast where we're going to do some Q&A. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. Fire
So
away.
I'm Brandon Leum, one of the co-founders of Building a Refuge, and today we have Erik Robinson, one of the co-founders of Building a Refuge.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kick it off, Eric. I think we were talking, I think, on the last episode, or at least around our mission, a little bit about that first event we had around No Shave November. We're in November today, right?
Right.
And maybe talk a little bit about that first event we had back in 2016?
18.
2018.
Yeah,
okay.
18. Yeah. So in 2018, we decided to make this thing something legit and real, and we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Right.
Like I said before, we had pretty big aspirations with what we wanted to do with this thing, and we had ideas of doing it in all four corners of the city and starting different places and all that stuff. And our first event that we had was a 3-day event. Our first event was on a Saturday at Fishers High School, and we had some really cool speakers. We had 5 speakers that came, were able to talk, tell a little bit about their story, their testimony, what they've been through. We had the director of the AFSP there, Kelsey, and her story's unreal. And it just had a bunch of really cool people there that day. And then the following Monday, we went to Sun King Brewery, had a No Shave November photo with all the guys that were there, and it was really cool. We just got an opportunity to hang out, tell a little bit about our story, and just really that was meant just to come and just kind of decompress from what you'd heard 2 days prior, and just be able to just hang out with some beers and some pizzas and just have fun. No,
I mean, it was a super night. I think we got a great response, and I think to kick it off, I think that's probably, we kind of set some expectations around the bar pretty high, in terms of people, because I think at the Fishers High School, I want to say we probably had 40 plus people, and I think at Sun King we probably had 30 or somewhere in there.
Between the three, because our third event was at Harley, at Harley Davidson and here in Fishers, and that was a huge success. And we had over 270 guys that showed up between those 3 events. And so we were kind of eyes wide open. Holy crap, what did we get ourselves into? And we uncovered something that we didn't really realize that was that enormous. So we kind of shrunk our geographic footprint of what we were going to go after and focused on Hamilton County. Because of the issue that we just had just found out about, that we had uncovered in our own backyard. And it was kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you. But we left that third day at Harley Davidson feeling something that I don't think either one of us have ever felt before.
I mean, I think that the energy around it, and I think really just the feedback we got was that, hey, you guys are doing the right thing here. Keep doing it, right?
That was the repeated thing. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when you look at that event, the feedback we got not only from the guys that came to that event and attended it, but quite frankly, I remember that we got feedback from wives and how important it was.
Well, a lot of the guys that came were there because of the requests from their wives. Which is huge. That's awesome.
It's huge.
That means they're communicating in some form or another.
And I think it's part of what we try to focus on, right? I mean, if we're in a better mindset, right? I mean, if you think about why we do this, right? We talk about building an environment of hope and a place for guys to come to, right? I mean, anytime I think you can practice mental health, right? I mean, I think it's a good thing overall. And we keep coming back. Harley Davidson has been great to us. They let us use their place. But we, maybe we talk a little bit about why we try to create these environments that are non-threatening, right?
So, and again, I haven't quite got into my story yet, but with what I went through, and this isn't realistic. I was in a fog, right? So what I'm about ready to say is not reality.
Sure.
The only 2 options I knew was I was going to get put in a stress center or in a rubber room somewhere, or get put in handcuffs.
Right.
That was the only 2 options I knew of.
Yep.
And I sure as hell wasn't going to go to some stress center and have my car sitting out in front of it so people could see that I was at a stress center. So I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about mental health providers. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
So our goal, we've got 2 main goals here. Number one, just from my experience, is to be a conduit. We're utilizing those relationships that Mike grew, to be able to plug into those therapists, to be able to plug into the clergy, different people that he has developed these relationships with,
Right.
and that we have relationships with, to be able to get people help when they need it immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's the kicker. You know, I went, and again, I haven't told my story, but I went from thinking about taking my life to attempting it in 3 days.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, when somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about this, boom.
Yeah.
Red flags, everything goes up, everything stops, and we get that person help.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we want to do. But also, Brandon, what I saw a lot of when I was researching through all this stuff about mental health and men and all this stuff, the story stopped short. There was a whole bunch of stories online about guys going through shit
Mm-hmm.
and just real tough times and tough things, and then it stopped.
Right.
I want to provide the hope piece.
Yeah.
You know, again, I'm on the other side of this, if that's the term you want to use.
Sure.
I'm through my struggles, and I still have day-to-day struggles just like everybody else. Everybody does.
Yeah.
But the main big chunk of my life that was so tragic, I'm through. So I'm on the other end of it. So I see the hope. But the benefit of what I went through is that now when I'm sitting there talking to guys and we're having our events and I'm sitting there across the table with them and they're telling their story, and thank God they do, because it's an avenue for them to be able to, you know, let it out.
Yeah.
When they're doing that, I can literally see, like, and I want to discuss the hope at the end of that thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to throw that in their face.
Right.
I'm not going to, because I want to acknowledge what they're going through, and I want to acknowledge that pain, because pain is pain is pain. We talk about that a lot, right?
That's right.
We don't judge the amount of pain that people are going through. It's their pain.
There's no pain scale.
No. And so they're going through their reality. They're going through their things, and they just need to get it out.
Yeah.
But I also want them to see and hope and understand that there is a light at the end of that thing.
Yeah.
You know, it might not be the same as it looked today, because some of the stuff that these guys have been through and they've walked through, their lives are never going to be the same.
Yeah.
My life's never going to be the same.
Yeah. No,
and part of that is, thank God it's not the same. And part of it's like, crap, I missed some of this old stuff. You know?
I think that as we, and Erik, listen, man, you know, I love how we've collaborated with a lot of people, but I think in the inception of trying to building this, right, and starting this, you know, our motto is one story at a time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is the precipice of what we do, you know, and that's what makes it real, because everybody has their story's their story, right? Your perspective of what you went through is different than my perspective of losing a sibling, right? I mean,
right.
You can't put yourself in each other's shoes until you have somebody in the room that's sitting across the desk like this that we interview one day and is open enough to tell a story about what it feels like to go through that. And I think, you know, that's been one of the most powerful things about where we've come so far is, you know, you and I have even had some self-doubt in doing this, because I think we've, you know, that first few times we did this, we had a lot of people, right? And we're like, oh, wow, we're really on the right path here. And then slowly, as we've had other events, those numbers have kind of declined. But, you know, just like where we're at today, I mean, Clark, I just said this a little bit earlier, man. I mean, we're here today because of you.
That's right.
Quite frankly.
Yeah.
We're here because you reached out. You said, hey, Gavin, I trust you, man. I'm going to come out to this thing and see what these dudes are all about.
Yeah.
And shit, we were just talking about trying to do a podcast, and now we're sitting here in front of you, this great studio, and we're able to tell our story. So, I mean, I would rather have one connection like you, man, versus having 10,000 people show up at an event just to come and hear us and then walk away, and it never really means anything, you know?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Talk a little bit about, you know, some of the environments of maybe where we've done this. So, I mean, I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody listening to us today, right? And they say, well, where are you guys hosting these things? So talk a little bit maybe about when we hosted them at Beer Brewery, you know, in that environment, Harley Davidson, Sun King Brewery, Union Brewing Company. Let's talk a little bit about that environment.
Yeah, I touched on a little bit earlier about not knowing where to go and what to do, and I was very intimidated by therapists. I was very intimidated by doctors. And when I'm intimidated, I just back away. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that did me no good. I just got worse, and everything snowballed. And so the idea that you and I had was, okay, if we're in that mindset, and part of my story involves me being in a dark basement,
Yep.
all by myself. The $1 million question is, what's going to get that guy up out of the basement?
Yep.
And I don't know if our approach is going to get him up out of the basement or not, but I can assure you that it would have been a hell of a lot better chance of me coming up out of there had I known about what an organization like what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we do. We a lot of people, I've had conversations with people about mental health and alcohol and all that stuff. Like,
right.
why do you do that? Well, it's not about the alcohol.
That's right.
It's about the location and the idea that you can walk in somewhere and just let your shoulders down a little bit.
Yep.
And be like, this is a relaxed atmosphere. And we always say it whenever we have an event, there's no expectations.
That's right.
There's no agenda. There's no expectations. We come in there and we sit down, whether it be at the bar, whether it be, and when I say at the bar, I'm not talking about with 8 million other people.
Right.
We had a location that at Beer Brew, they gave us the bar for the night.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
I know.
On Monday night, he's like, "Here's the keys. Come on." That
Use
just
it.
blows me away.
Right.
Just like today blows me away. and it's like, so we go into these places like Harley and Beer Brewery and some of these places, and we are by ourselves.
Yeah.
So when we kick off those meetings and 9 times out of 10, it's you and I telling a little bit or, a little piece of our story.
Yeah.
You can literally feel it around the room and see it around the room of guys just relaxing.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, like and they might not say anything, which is okay.
Yep.
You don't have to say a freaking word when you come into our meetings.
Right. That's exactly
but
right.
Inevitably, there's somebody that chimes in and says, oh yeah, well, this is what I'm going through right now. And then the focus immediately shifts to them.
Yeah.
And if they're willing and able, we hopefully strike up a relationship. We get to a point where we can build some trust.
Yeah.
And then we're able to take advantage of those 27 different, connections that we have to get them in front of a therapist, get in front of clergy, get them in front of, hospital
That's
care,
right.
whatever they need.
That's right.
And I don't know why, but every time I'm amazed when something like that happens.
Yeah.
And it really is a testimony to the people that we've decided to put ourselves around.
Yeah.
We have been blessed to have unreal people that are not only there, but willing to help.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think if you look at, again, some of the events that we've hosted and then really kind of outside of that, right? I mean, when we leave these events and we go out, inherently, I always will get a call from somebody that says, hey, man, sorry I didn't make it out to your event, but really would like to make it to the next one, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I know people listen, right? And I think that's the continual effort here that we're trying to get to is just, hey, listen, trust us, man. I mean, this is we're not two smart guys, right? I mean, we're, when you come here, you're not coming to a typical, I guess, classroom or whatever maybe that you think it might be. Yeah. It's a chill event, and it's more about networking with other men, other dads, brothers, uncles, whatever, and sharing stories. I mean, that's really what it is. And I think that commonality, just creates that energy. Because I always say, right, when you can walk in somebody's shoes, you can obviously get their perspective a little bit better. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's really what we strive to do at the end of the day, right? Yeah.
Because I don't even interrupt you, but like when I told you earlier, like that when I did the research and listened to guys talk and their stories stopped, before that hope piece, because they were just in a dark place.
Yeah.
The benefit of having somebody sitting across from you is that you might not need to verbally say that.
Yeah.
But by looking somebody straight in the eye and having a face-to-face conversation, and they know that you're listening. Yeah. That's huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had a huge example of somebody sitting there listening to me puke my guts out for 3 hours. Yeah. And it changed my life. Right. Like it literally saved my life. Yeah. And so if we can be even a portion of that. Yeah. And they can see that we genuinely care, then my hope is that either verbally or through our body language or whatever we can to offer them, that they can begin to start the steps of seeing that hope at the end of it. Because right now, 99% of the time, the guys that we talk to, it's dark stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, prime example of it, right? I mean, we hosted an event this past September on National Suicide Awareness Day, September the 10th, right? Yeah. And happened to fall on a Saturday. We decided, hey, let's do an awareness day, right? We brought in some bands. We did a big barbecue, chicken Q, good old Wisconsin chicken Q. And we ended up having a really nice turnout. But I think what was really wild for me is I had a couple, I'll be honest, I had 4 guys come up to me and share stories with me. And they told me that they've never talked to anybody about this before until that day.
Yeah.
And I was shocked, man. Yeah. I mean, and I think one of the things that Tommy Perry, who's another one of our founders, hopefully we'll get him in on an interview with us. Yeah. Tommy Perry, one of his comments I thought that day was really profound in the fact that you can't put a mathematical equation to this. Mm-hmm. So if you're a listener, right, you're listening, I'm listening to you, I'm listening, right? Naturally, I'm going to go to my mind to try to fix it, right? Sure. But you can't put a 2 + 2 equation to this. It's just not going to fit it. Mm-hmm. And I think Tommy's, suggestion is just listen. That's all you need to do. Just simply listen. Yeah. And I think that's what these are for, right? We get an opportunity to do something like this. It's fun to sit and interview one another, but we get an opportunity to listen to somebody's story and just say, hey, look, man, we're willing to put in the time. We're willing to hang out with you, and we're willing to listen to you. Yeah. I'll guarantee it will come across somebody that's going to have walked in that path, right, in that light, that can share a little bit of support to somebody down the road. 100% guarantee
that's what we bumped into, right?
Yeah.
As we meet more and more guys, we're like, oh, you should talk to him. You should talk to him. You're going through that. You should talk to him. And it's just, all it is like I've said from the beginning, is being a conduit.
Yeah.
Whether that be to other dudes who've been through that same shit before.
Yeah.
Or to clinicians or clergy, whatever it may be. Yeah. That's power.
So, another example I think about too is when we had to work through COVID, right?
Yeah.
We went to the virtual environment, which sucked because this is a hands-on kind of in-person thing, right? One of the examples I remember the best, and I know you will too, is when we had our first or second call. It was amazing to me that 2 guys showed up on the call that were going through the exact same thing.
Right. I remember.
We didn't plan this. Yeah. This wasn't like, hey, maybe we can get this guy, maybe we can get that guy. Then 2 dudes show up on the call going through literally the exact same thing, super challenging part of life.
Right.
And there's a network there.
Yeah.
They shared each other's stories. They said, hey, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? Yeah. And even if it gives an inch of help, inch of help or an inch of hope, man, I'm good with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think, so, we talk about what the mission is and we talk about where we're going, those are just examples, I think, about how this is organic, man. Like, we don't have any plan. Like I said before, we're not smart guys, man. We're just 2 dudes with an idea, right?
Yep.
But, I think it's important. I think that's the cool part about it is it's organically growing on its own, right? Yeah. And again, we're here today, which is shocking to me, which is awesome, right? But maybe let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about, we talked, some about how we built this thing. We've talked a little bit about your story. Mm-hmm. How are you doing today, right? I mean, overall, right? You've been through a lot of stuff. We've been through a lot of stuff together, but how are you doing?
Yeah, you always say I'm doing okay, right?
Yep.
Well, last couple weeks have been a struggle, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's we're dealing. I've got 2 children and one in college and one in high school, and there's struggles there.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure, the things that they walk through and travel through, because as a parent, you wear that pain with them.
Yeah.
And it's just, some of the things that they've been going through have been pretty painful.
Yeah.
But through my story, again, we'll refer back to my story and the experiences that we've had. They walked through that stuff with me too.
Yeah.
They were 6 and 10 at the time.
Yeah.
So they're not, they're of the age. They something's going on. My 10-year-old daughter knew exactly what was going on. My 6-year-old was kind of like, what the hell is, he
what's going on? Where's Dad? What's up with Dad?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when we got through some of that stuff, we were able to have conversations that most 12, 13, 14-year-old kids don't have to have with their parents. And it ended up being very difficult, but an enormous blessing for now.
Yeah.
Because what we walk through, we're utilizing now. The transparency, the openness, the ability for her and I to talk, the ability for me and my son to talk, for my wife to talk. And it is an open atmosphere. And every single time that we get done having a conversation with them, or we get off the phone or whatever, and my wife and I are sitting there talking. We're like, thank God they called us.
Yeah.
Because we know all too well from the people that we have surrounded ourselves with. I mean, that's not normal.
No.
It just isn't. And it's unfortunate that it isn't, and it's unfortunate what we had to go through to get there.
Yeah.
But we're there.
That's right.
And that is a perfect example of the hope when you're in the midst of all the shit.
Yeah.
Because at all times there's hope there.
That's right.
You just got to be able to see it.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I'll just tag onto this, right? Because you and I, we've talked a lot, and I think that's the bond that we have, right? I mean, we trust one another.
Yeah.
But I think even, going through what I went through, I mean, Mike had mentioned to this once before too. He talked a little bit about PTSD, right? Yeah. And I brushed it off. I was like, I'm not a veteran. I didn't really understand what PTSD was, but after talking to Mike about this and learning a little bit more about it, and I've shared this with you, right? I mean, I quit 3 jobs in 3 years.
Yeah. That was a tough time for you.
I was squirrely as all get out, man. Like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know what I mean? I was like, I just couldn't. I was here, but I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't focus. I couldn't, it was just an odd time.
Yeah.
But to your point about if I hadn't been through those experiences and I hadn't had the opportunity to have an environment like this, whether it was when we sat with Mike in coffee shops or we had a beer or whatever we were doing, and just being open about what was going on in my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, I don't think. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, I think I'd be here, but I'm just saying I don't know if I would have the confidence in where I'm at today.
Right.
To know what I went through, if that even sounds, remotely sensible. But
yeah.
But I think it's also helpful. It's been helpful for my family. I can tell you now today, my kids look at me like, yeah, Dad changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I did. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And but a lot of that has had to do with what we've been doing together, and just creating this environment where I know, man, look, I'm not shameful to tell you, hey, man, I'm having a shitty day. And you know it. I've called you before on it. I've called a couple of our other buddies that we do this with, right? And I think going back to what the goal and the mission is of what we're talking about, and that's really what building a refuge is all about. It's one story at a time. We're building a network. We're building a refuge. It's probably not going at the pace that you and I want it to go, but man, you get blown away by situations like this and what happened last Saturday and us meeting Clark. And now we're here today talking.
Right.
We're able to do this. We're able to take this to the social media side of things, or take it out and just being able to have a conduit to talk to people. Because my goal is, Eric, is no different than you, man. If some dude over in who knows where in a different part of the world happens to stumble across our channel, and they're like, man, this is cool shit,
Yeah.
I mean, that's at the end of the day all we're trying to do, and so I think having the resources that we do, and that we've aligned through the help and support that we've had so far has been fantastic. I mean, and so we can direct somebody at least, for help if they want to take that avenue of it, right? So,
yeah, and they might not feel comfortable right away, but hopefully and eventually through relationship and sharing stories and things like that, they'll be accepting of the help.
Yeah,
because that's a hard thing to do, man. It's a hard thing to do, to accept help.
Yeah. Well, and I'm super excited about the future, right? I'm super excited about working with you, Clark, and LDR. I mean, this is great. Super place to hang out and do this.
This is fun.
I'm super excited for us to be able to build some more interviews. I mean, I know we have guys kind of lined up that would like to come in and tell a story, right?
Yeah.
So finding content, I don't think is going to be a challenge at all. I think, it's just kind of organizing it and getting it lined up, but super excited about being able to do some more of these podcasts and hanging out and just having fun with it. And hopefully, bring some hope to some folks, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's the goal. So
that's the goal.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. Well, Eric, thank you, man, so much. This is great. I tell you thank you all the time, but man, this is fun. I could do this all day, like we said. So, but thanks a lot for sharing, and hopefully we'll get to hear more of your story, man.
Absolutely. Love you,
bud.
bud.
Yeah, love you too, buddy.
All right.